in order to be most successful in this course today, if I can talk, is that you are going to want to have this Canvas course open on either a separate tab or on a dual screen. So if you have a dual screen, that's the best setup. But if you don't, go ahead and make sure you have this course open on a separate tab, because you're going to actually, I want you to actually be able to click on things and look around in Canvas and so forth as we're going, versus me just showing you things and you just watching. We're going to take time for you to actually practice. So I have this, I'm going to have obviously my course up on the screen, and I'll leave it up on whatever page it is that I have activities for you to do or things to try out. So when I do that and we take a break for you to actually try something out, then you can open up that other tab and you can try out what we've just talked about. Anything else, Sarah, that I have missed that we need to say before we get started here?
I think you're good.
Okay. Anything in the chat so far that we need to?
Yeah, so far, I think we're good.
Okay, awesome. Turns out if you have a course people can actually get to, then you're off to a good start. All right, so course introduction. Let's talk about what this course is all for. So with being one-to-one, and we also have the added layer that fifth grade is taking their devices home this year as well. We want to make sure that you get a basic understanding around our philosophy as a district of Chromebook one-to-one use, when it's best used and when it's not. We want to give you as many ideas as possible for effective and collaborative instructional technology integration. I know that's a mouthful. Basically, we want to give you ideas that actually work, and give you as many ideas as possible. So we also want to give you a place within this course that you can share ideas and resources and ask questions about one-to-one specifically throughout the school year. So at the very end of this course, there is a couple of discussions sections where you can actually, since you've been added to this course, you can actually come back throughout the year and you can grab more resources, or you can ask more questions about one-to-one, and I'll be monitoring this course throughout the year. So if you were registered on Learning Stream, you should have already been automatically enrolled as a student. I know there was like 115 enrollments, so a lot of you there. And then it is what we call an institution level course, which means if you have a coworker that was not able to attend the session this morning, but they would still like the resources, I turned this on where basically this course is a website now for anybody that's in Fort Zumwalt. It's similar to if I had gone to a Google Doc and I said share so that anyone in Fort Zumwalt can view, that's what they would have. So they wouldn't be listed as a student, but they would be able to see all the modules and resources. Now, if they decide they want to be enrolled as a student for the pieces of being able to add to the discussion and things like that, then you could have them put in a work order and say, please add me to the one-to-one implementation course as a student, and then I can actually add them. But they don't have to be a student in the course just to be able to see the course. It's very similar to how we have our FZ Tech Central set up with all of our resources. It's the same thing. It's basically turning your Canvas course into a website is what you're kind of doing. I do want to make sure to give some special thanks to people that helped me to build this course. I had some virtual teachers. I sent out a Google form to them asking, you know, you taught virtually last year, you're going back in face-to-face this year. What are some things that you did that you want to continue doing this year that you learned while you were a virtual teacher? So I have some quotes and things from them sprinkled throughout this course, and I thought they had some really amazing ideas. We had technology teachers, we had our fifth grade teachers that piloted our one-to-one program in the spring. Julia Starry was another one that gave me some resources. So I just want to make sure that I give thanks to them, because this was definitely not just all from me. So it's from great ideas that other people helped share. All right, so what you can do then, I'm going to be going through the course as if I were a student in the course, and you can do so on your screen as well. I'm going to go ahead and click next. I will say, just to keep in mind, because I'm sharing my screen and loading things, the load time may be a little bit slow, so be patient if it's having trouble loading a screen for me. All right, so my first thing is let's talk about just the overall concept here. My students have a Chromebooks. Now what do I need to do with them? So remembering, first of all, that technology is a tool to achieve goals of student learning, student collaboration, student motivation, but it's not the goal itself. You know, the goal when I was teaching tech class, I might have used Flipgrid or used Nearpod or used Canvas, but that wasn't the goal, was to teach my kids Nearpod and Flipgrid and Canvas. My goal is we were working on collaborative skills. We were working on design skills. We were working on digital citizenship skills. So the goal is always, what is the student going to be learning with the technology versus teaching the technology. So I have a couple of quotes from my new favorite book called The Complete EdTech Coach. And I think that they are things that we always want to keep in mind as we have technology in our classrooms. And that's we're leading with the learning, not with the tech, and don't use tech for the sake of using tech. It can be tempting sometimes because you see something that looks really cool and really fun, but sometimes you end up frustrating yourself and your students, or finding that you don't get the benefit, the learning benefit out of it as you had hoped. So we certainly, you know, want you to take risks and try new things and stuff, because that's how we learn. But just keep in mind that nobody is asking you here to use technology just to use technology. If we're asking you to do things in Canvas, it's because of what students can achieve in their learning by using that tool. But just those tools in themselves are just tools. That's all about how you choose to use them. So if you're going to be using technology in your classroom, I just have some questions that you can think about as you go about. And I really want to encourage you is, don't try to start with the tech as far as, okay, I want to use Flipgrid and how can I make that work in my curriculum? The way that it works best is you're thinking, I have the skill to teach my students. What kinds of tools can I use that are going to help them achieve that goal? So it's the way that you approach where technology fits in. It's a piece of how you go about teaching students. It's not the goal itself. So some things you want to make sure, you know, sometimes it's going to be preferable not to use technology. Maybe you think through the lesson and you realize that the amount of time that you would spend teaching the kids, you're not going to get the learning benefit out of it. How equipped are my students and I to use this technology? Maybe you need to do a mini lesson first of just learning how to use the tool so that they then can use the tool for learning. So sometimes there is, you know, time that you do have to build those skills of just using the tool, but then you can use it for the student learning afterwards. And that's also where your technology teachers can come in and be really helpful, because they are teaching kids how to use things like Nearpod and Canvas and Flipgrid and those different programs, so that when they come to your classroom, especially by 3rd through 5th grade, these programs are not new to them. So you can focus on the learning goals versus having to teach them those actual programs. So where it says, who might I need to ask for help? Well, you have, I just mentioned one person in your building that you can ask for help, and that's your technology teacher. You certainly can put in a work order. I have a ways to schedule virtual meetings with me this year. If you want to schedule a 30-minute time to work on a lesson or you know, problem solve something together, and I'll be doing building visits and stuff this year as well. So that's some ways that you can get that support, and obviously from other teachers in your building. All right, so the next piece, I'm gonna get that philosophy part set there. My first virtual quote has to do with the concept of using the blueprint as a guide. So the virtual teacher said, I like the pacing and lessons that were posted. Students will not follow lessons on the screen, but access if absent. This will keep from having gaps in learning. So they really like to use the blueprint as their daily guide of what they were teaching, even though they weren't just clicking through the blueprint itself and just putting the blueprint up on the screen. So I thought that was a great way to think about the blueprint as kind of your guide. You have tons of activities and assignments and things in there that have already been built for you. They're already in your course. All you have to do is, you know, add a due date, decide how much points it's worth, or if you're going to take it as a grade, and publish it, and your kids can get right to it. One thing that we had an issue with last year was, because the blueprint went all year and because you had daily modules, especially in things like ELA and math, by fourth quarter, the amount of content in courses was just massive. So one of the reasons that we went to semester courses this year is because of that. So you're getting content pushed in one semester at a time, and then you will get a fresh math and reading and science and social studies class in January with fresh content pushed in as well. So that way you aren't going to get so bogged down. Now I realize, if things aren't published, your kids can't see them, but even on the teacher end, when I was going into courses towards the end of the year, it was like, trying to sort through just massive amounts of information. So we're hoping that the semester courses will kind of make that not quite so crazy. All right, Sarah, any questions so far that you need from me to answer?
I think we're doing okay.
All right, thank you. All right, so when you put technology in students' hands, one of the most important things that you can do from the very beginning is establish how you're going to go about making that work in your classroom. And for a fifth grade teacher with the student taking the device home, it's going to be a little bit different than a third or fourth grade teacher having devices stay in the classroom. But I want to encourage you to think about these types of issues from the very beginning, so that when those students get their hands on the device the very first time, that they already understand your expectations in class. So things like, when are we taking our devices out and when are we putting them away, whether it's in a cart or in a book bag? How are we holding our devices? When are we allowed to use them? The whole headphone storage and management can be tricky too. So making sure you have procedures in that, how to make sure that all devices are getting charged, and what to do when a device isn't working. Or for our fifth grade students, if they brought it in and it's not charged at all, or they forgot it completely. So to help with that, and especially at the fifth grade level, we designed a slideshow that is, we've asked principals to work with fifth grade teachers to show every fifth grade student this slideshow the first week of school before their devices go home. We've also asked buildings to, said that you can share this slideshow with parents as well once students have had a chance to go through with it, with you is what I meant to say. So this is the link to the slideshow itself. What I tried to do with the different resources in here, if it's something that you might want to use, I put a link to it so we'll open in a new tab, but I also embedded it into the page itself. So that way you could kind of go through it in the course, and especially if you're a teacher, like a third or fourth grade teacher, you can kind of decide, is this something that I would want to make a copy of and modify for my third and fourth grade students or not? So you can kind of go through it this way. So we have tried to design, and this was designed with a group of technology teachers, and also we talked with our pilot program buildings that did one-to-one take home in the spring. So we try to think through what are the different things we would need to tell students from the very beginning. So we have some, do's and don'ts. We also try to keep it positive. What can you do? So it's not just all don'ts. With the principals, we worked through what we thought appropriate consequences would be for our fifth graders, because we know that, having an issue like a discipline type of issue is different than having an uncharged device. So we tried to work through with principals what are some basic guidelines that we could have all of our students follow. But like I said, even if you are a third or fourth grade teacher, you can still make an adaptation of this that would work in your classroom as well. So I wanted to make sure that everybody got to see it. I will say for fifth grade, just make sure loaner Chromebooks, they are going to get checked out from the library. So make sure that you have a procedure in place with your librarian. We've asked librarians that, to make sure that they are confident that the work order was put in for the broken Chromebook, if it's a broken Chromebook issue versus just I forgot it or it's, not charged or whatever, so that we can make sure that we're not handing out loaners unless a work order has been put in for the broken device. So that's really the super important piece in order to manage everything throughout the year. The other piece I put in here is just some basic Chromebook care and expectations slideshow. And Sarah, I think you may have either made this or shared it with me because I had your name on it. So thank you.
Way back. I think another tech teacher
Oh, okay.
actually.
Well, you know,
that.
we all like to
Pass it on.
share. So it looks familiar, at least to you. So these are some guidelines that you can share with students. You could even put some of these guidelines, up in your classroom if you wanted. I just think that these are very basic things that are important to go through with your students, whether they're taking them home or not. Like this one, for example, only take pictures with my Chromebook when given permission, because there is a camera built into a Chromebook, and there are lots of different programs and ways that you can take pictures. So these are just some very basic guidelines that I would suggest going through, whether you use this slideshow or not. Make sure. Now, with touchscreens, you do need to make sure some of them are touchscreens, some of them are not. So you would probably want to modify this slide based on what kind of Chromebook that your students have. One of the other things that when we talk to the secondary coordinators, since they've been, their students have been doing one-to-one for several years now at the middle and high school level, is they use some signs up on their screen. Now I had to modify their wording to make it more elementary friendly. It's still not quite as pretty as I would have liked if I had designed it myself, but that's the elementary teacher in me. But what they said is they like to put up on their whiteboard when students are going to be using technology in class and when they aren't, so that students know when it's time for math and we're getting on our math stuff, there's a sign on the screen that said, Chromebooks may not be used right now, or maybe we're in science and Chromebooks are going to be used right now. The other option that I put here is it may be used when you are done with your activity. So maybe they have to finish something else first before they can get on their Chromebook and do something else. So just a thought for you that might help, because I do know, talking to some fifth grade teachers last year, they're like, man, I try to go from math to science, and it's like kids are trying to get out the Chromebook for 3 minutes in between because we haven't started science yet because I'm helping the kids still, or something like that. So just setting up those expectations and ideas from the very beginning and making sure students know when it's okay to be using a device, when it's not, and also what they're allowed to do on the device, right? So if you give them, say you can get on the Chromebook when you're done with that activity, but what are they allowed to do? That's another really big and important piece that you want to think about. All right. Anything, Sarah?
Nope. I think you're doing great. We don't have any early questions other than just one question was, can you go directly to different platforms, like if you were going to Flipgrid or Nearpod, or do you have to go through Canvas? So, but I said you can do it either way, but going through Canvas is easier to organize and to track. So
yes, I would definitely agree with that. So yes, you do, there's a little bit of setup for some of those tools for getting into Canvas. Nearpod, not nearly as much as like Flipgrid. You have to do a little bit more to get it into your Canvas courses. But I will say the payoff is that any assignment and thing that you make, if it's using the external tools in Canvas itself, then you get to use SpeedGrader as well. So like with Nearpods, if you use the Nearpod LTI within Canvas when you're assigning an assignment, then you get a printout of how the student did in your SpeedGrader section. And with Flipgrid, if you do it through Canvas itself versus just sending them to Flipgrid, then you can actually view videos and create assignments and things like that within Canvas. So I would suggest, if you haven't tried using one of those tools inside of Canvas yet, maybe not try all of them at once, but pick the one that you would like to try the most and see how that works for you, because I think you'll realize that it's really nice to have everything in one place and not be sending kids off to all these different websites too.
And also with that, then you don't have to have students type in codes and
yes, thank you. Yes,
a little time saver.
Yeah, like with Flipgrid, once you add it to a Canvas course, then you don't have to do a different code, or same thing with Nearpod. There's no more codes for students to put in. Thank you, Sarah. That's a good another reason. All right, so one of the other things that our virtual teachers learned how to use last year was GoGuardian, and I know that some of you on the session right now probably have also used GoGuardian in the past, but not necessarily everybody. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but I am going to just give you some overall thoughts on GoGuardian. GoGuardian really is super, super useful for classroom management when your students are all on devices, because you can't be, you can't see just walking around everybody's screen at the same time. And certainly we still want you walking around and, viewing student screen. This isn't just giving you away just to sit behind your desk, but what we're saying is that it's going to give you a lot more ways to communicate, manage, give students links, and just monitor what they're doing. So benefits of using GoGuardian: your student screens all show up on your screen. You have a way to send them directly to links. So you can say, my students all need to be at Pebble Go right now. And instead of telling them where to go, we don't have time, I just need to get them there. You can just put the link in GoGuardian and push it out, and it will automatically open on your student screens. You can lock student screens. This is really helpful if you're having a lesson where part of the lesson is using the technology and part of the lesson is not. So when students are supposed to be working on their screen, you leave the screens unlocked. When the students are supposed to be looking at you, you leave the screen locked. They also have a new presentation mode that rolled out last year where you can push what's on your screen to your student screen. So if there's a website or a process or something you're trying to have them work through, you can push your screen to them, and then they can't do anything on their own screen except watch what you're doing on your screen, but it's still right in front of them. You can also block specific websites, and you can do that where you have websites that you have always blocked based on what we call scenes that you set up in GoGuardian, or you can also just say, for this lesson, I'm going to go ahead and block this website, because even though it's it's not a bad website or anything, it's not one I want my students on right now. So for learning more about GoGuardian, I do have a slideshow here. I embedded it in here. I also have a link to the slideshow so that you can view it as well. If you are somebody that used GoGuardian in the past and you have another reason or your favorite thing about GoGuardian that you liked, you certainly feel free to add that in the chat for everyone to see, so that you can we can kind of build upon what some of you I know have already done in the past. But I do want to stop and do our very first activity, because GoGuardian just got all updated and ready to go. At least my end it is, and I think Sarah said hers was as well. So if you go to this link here, teacher.goguardian.com, this is actually just an image I embedded, so this link does not work. But this is going to take you to your classes that have come in from ClassLink now, instead of from Clever, as in the past. And you're going to have this section called Pending. And these are your classes that came in from ClassLink. Now, obviously, you'll have your classes from SIS. They're not going to be called demo. They'll be called, 4th grade reading, 5th grade science, so forth. If you are a classroom teacher, you don't necessarily need to add all of those classes. If you have the same students throughout the day, really you could just run your sessions based off of one of those classes. So maybe like your homeroom or something like that. You certainly could add them all, but I don't know that you really need to. So in order to get that class on your main dashboard, you just go to Pending, hit Accept. And then if I go to Active now, that is an active class. Your students should also be built into that class. So if I click on that class, you see I have my pretend student in my pretend class, but you should have your list from SIS that has been pushed through. You can also set up some scheduling. So if you know that you want to have GoGuardian running during a certain time every day, and it goes by, Monday through Friday, not A through E day, so kind of keep that in mind. But you could set up a recurring schedule. I know a lot of our secondary teachers do that, because they know when they have, they bring in each hour separately, and then they can have that run automatically without having to remember to start a session every time their new hour starts, because they're switching kids every hour or so, and so GoGuardian scheduling helps them to have that run all on its own. But you also can obviously start a session anytime that you would like. So I'm going to take just a minute here, and I'm going to stop talking a second here, and I'm going to give you a chance, if you have not yet, to go to that teacher.goguardian.com and to accept one of your classes. like I said, I suggest homeroom would probably be the one that I would suggest to bring over because all of your students should be inside your homeroom. Sometimes they're not in, kid goes to special ed for reading or something like that. And then just make sure that, you have students in there and stuff like that. I do know, the data keeps getting updated this week as new kids enroll and things like that. So as long as you have some students in there, you should be okay. It may not be 100% up to date just because things are still getting pushed through. So I'm going to take a second here. I'm going to mute. If you have an idea of how you use GoGuardian, I saw a couple things popping up. And then I will come back on and we'll continue.
Couple real quick question,
Sure.
Hannah. How long does it take for a new student to sync into GoGuardian?
Generally it's the same amount of time as it takes them to sync into like ClassLink or Canvas or something like that. So it's usually about a day. But sometimes if the data has not all been completed in SIS, it could be 2 or 3. So everything originates from SIS. So if, for example, somebody put a kid in SIS but forgot to put their email address, then it doesn't finish syncing. So if you have a kid that's, you've had in class for a couple days and they're still not there, the best thing to do would be to have your tech teacher or your registrar be checking SIS. And yeah, I saw it pop up if I don't have a GoGuardian account. So here's the deal. You get a GoGuardian account because you have classes. Now people can add you to a class. So if you are working with a particular class, so let's say you're an instructional coach and you're spending a lot of time in a particular second grade class working with that teacher on something, they can add you as a teacher to that class and you're basically co-teaching then. And so then you both would have it on your dashboard. But if you don't have any classes, you probably don't have a GoGuardian account at all yet because we didn't have anything to sync from SIS because you weren't assigned. So if you need a GoGuardian account and you don't have any classes, you would need to put in a work order because we would have to create that for you manually. Anything else on that, Sarah?
I think we're good. If I'm a new teacher, do I need to make an account? No, you will have an account as long as you have classes in SIS. So it may take a little bit of time for that to all sync up, but you will have that as a classroom or as a teacher that has classes in SIS.
Okay.
I think we're good.
I saw something just pop up. Come to me is something about, can I have things run all day?
Am I not seeing that?
I don't know. I didn't catch it before it went down. Maybe they just asked me. I do want to say, because Sarah, have you had the issue where you have any competing sessions with the classroom teacher when you're trying to run a session, but they've already
I have not run into that yet, but
I do think you do need to be careful about running GoGuardian. I don't think kids are allowed to be in 2 sessions at the same time, if I'm remembering correctly. And hopefully I am.
I think as a teacher, you can run 2 sessions, but I don't think as a student. So if you're a classroom teacher, you need to watch when they are joining, or when they're going to specials like tech and library.
Right. So yeah, so if they're going to a special, it probably just would be those 2 that would be an issue. Unless you have a really, really techie music or PE teacher. But yes, so I think that you do want to make sure that you're not overlapping when another teacher would be running GoGuardian, because we before, I do know we've had before is a teacher left a session running and the kids went to like library and the classroom teacher had blocked the exact website that the librarian needed the kids to get on. So you do want to be careful about that because then they're not going to be able to do what they're supposed to do. So yeah, good thing to keep in mind. All right. Anything?
And just as you're posting questions in the chat, make sure you're just posting them to all, or make sure
don't just post them to the post, because that means they're only coming to me and I can, I'm not really monitoring it. I kind of see things pop up a little bit, but I don't have good access to the chat right now.
Okay. And can I add a teacher to my classroom? Yes, on that button that you just showed.
Yes. So teachers,
there's a green button.
I went into a course, or let me go back to my classrooms here. So I go into a course, I go down to teachers, and then I click on add teacher. So you can search by name or email. As long as they're in GoGuardian, then you should be able to find them. Okay. Anything else on GoGuardian? Right, let me go back in here. And remember, you only need to accept one of your classes because, and I would suggest homeroom because we know it's going to have all your students in it. I don't see as a classroom teacher why you would need to run different sessions unless, I guess, so here's, I guess, maybe where you would be interested in accepting all of your classes. I'm just trying to think through if I were a classroom teacher here. If you wanted to set up scheduling for each subject, then maybe you would want to accept all of your classes. So let's say you always teach reading in this hour-and-a-half time frame. And I know with, you know, elementary teachers and scheduling is not always exactly the same time frame, A through E, but if you do have a general time frame when you would do each subject, then I could see that would be a reason to accept all of them because then it would be automatic. So you could say reading I always want to run from, you know, 10:20 to 11:30 or whatever the case might be.
And you showed them how to just start like a quick session.
Yeah, so you don't have to, you do not have to schedule. You can just go down to the class. Actually, you don't even have to come here.
I would say I'm just on that card.
Just on the main screen. Don't make it harder, Hannah. Where it says start class, you can just start a session from there. So it's really as simple as a start button. I think this was updated from last year, Sarah, right? That
Yes.
even made it easier than it was before.
That was there last year. I used that a lot until
Okay.
I got the scheduling thing going. But yeah, that's a good way to do it.
Okay. All right. Oh, and this is new, Sarah. Check if a website is blocked. That might be something.
Always adding something cool.
Yeah, I know. That wasn't there last spring, so I might need to play around with that. All right, because we do have certain things we block at the district level, so I guess that would be, yeah. So, yeah, so if you are going to have different settings based on different subjects, or if you are going to be scheduling times to run throughout the day based on those subjects, then I would say accept more than just your homeroom. Would you agree, Sarah? On that?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay. So, but if you are just wanting to run manual sessions or things like that, or you don't know that you're going to want to, you know, use it all day on and off throughout the day, then maybe just one would be a time. But thinking as a
Yes.
classroom teacher, I can see the benefit of that scheduling piece for different subjects.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on Go Guardian before we keep moving here? All right.
Just would it be beneficial to accept more classes if I want to block certain runs? Well, I would set up certain scenes that you could run when you are starting a session, because you can set up different scenes and then block certain things.
Yeah, so like I have a scene here that's my no YouTube scene because I know that one's a really popular one. So when I am, and let me see here, I think, yeah, I have this one running right now. I have my I logged in on a Chromebook, so I have my fake. Now remember, you're not going to see students here unless they're actually logged in. So don't forget if you don't see screens because they're not turned on, they're not here. Hopefully they're not here. But where you have no scene applied, if you created a scene in the scene section, so I created this no YouTube scene. Now, once I turn that on, guess what? Kids can't go to YouTube. So that is a way that you can enable and disable it, you know, whenever you want. But yes, you can create your own scenes of custom sites that students either can or cannot go to. All right, these are all good questions. You can push out a tab at any time. So I have, here we go. So if I select students, and then I can say open the tab, and then I put in my URL, and then I click open, and it sends those students to that site. So whichever students I have checked off. Now keep in mind, another thing to keep in mind is you might have students that like go to JET or go to resource. So if you're opening up a tab and they're in another class, it's going to open up the tab on their screen if they're using it in that class too. So you see here, this just went to Google because that's the tab that I sent my students to. So it is a really fast and easy way to get your students where you want them to be. Right. Great questions. Okay. We do have a lot of other stuff to talk about though. So I'm going to go ahead and keep moving here to our next topic. Do a load. Okay, so one of the things that I suggest is if you're going to have a student use a new technology tool for learning throughout the year, is start off with a more non-academic activity with a very, low risk level where they're not trying to learn a new skill or strategy and say math or science or social studies at the same time as they're learning the new program. And a great way to do that is beginning of the year activities. It's a great way to get students, review if they haven't used the tool in a while. Maybe they used it in tech class before, but they haven't used it in a while, or teach them this tool from the very beginning. So one of the things that we had from our virtual teachers is one of Nearpod's fun activities, which is called Time to Climb. And that's their version of like a Kahoot, but it's built into Nearpod itself. So the virtual teacher said, one thing I look forward to using in my class is Nearpod's Time to Climb. This was a bit tricky virtually because of all the different internet speeds, but I think it will be a lot of fun in person. And Sarah and I have both used this with our technology classes, so we would agree with that. So what I have here, and I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes because I put a bunch of resources in here for you to take a look at and see if there's anything that you would find useful. So, and with some couple of different programs. So the first one is this Nearpod Back to School Icebreakers. So I shared this to where it should prompt you, and who knows how long, okay, to add it to your library. So once you click on add to library, it's going to be in your Nearpod library. Now you might have to sign into Nearpod first if you're not already signed in, just so you know. So if it comes up with the Nearpod screen, you might have to sign in. But then that will show up here in your library and you will be able to assign it through Canvas. I have from Flipgrid has what kind of like their version of Commons, which is their discovery section. So any teacher can create a Flipgrid and put it in the discovery section for other teachers to use. So that's where this Flipgrid one will take you to. It's a beginning of the year where kids are sharing information about themselves. I thought it was cute because the teacher put minions and stuff like that in there. So this gives you a preview of what it's going to ask the students. Excuse me. And then you can add this topic to your own Flipgrid as well. So you click on add topic and you can add it to groups, or you can just save it if you want to go back and look at it later. So that is the Flipgrid one. The other one has multiple resources. So this teacher is awesome. And she shared this whole PDF here that has digital links inside. So these should all be clickable links. And these are all, oh boy, please load. This might take a minute. These are all different beginning of the year, get to know you activities. Here we go. So all of these are links that will get you to make your own copy to put into your drive. So some of these things are like a Google slideshow type of activity. And there's also some Google form questions that you can ask if you want to have students practice doing a Google form. So any of these links will ask you to make a copy, and then you can go ahead and you can use that copy in your classes. And for assigning, I also embedded in here how to assign a Nearpod assignment in Canvas. It's a video to watch. How to assign a Flipgrid assignment in Canvas, and how to assign a Google assignment, because the ones from that last resource are all Google assignments. So what I'm going to give you right now is a couple minutes to look at those activities. So you can add the Nearpod to your library, and then you can preview it. Oops, it's the wrong Nearpod screen. That's for later. And you can preview it right here and see what's inside. You can edit it as well. So if you don't like all the questions in here, you can make changes. But there is a time to climb built into the Nearpod, this Nearpod right here. So it would give students a chance to get to do that fun activity as well. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to do about 2-3 minutes. Just give you a chance to look at those resources. And Sarah, if there's any major questions coming around at that time, just pop in and let me know. While you guys are looking at a couple of things, one thing I wanted to mention, someone said, do we have to assign these things through Canvas? No, you do not. I think and we're going to talk about more about the Google assignment piece here later about using those with students. I think there's a lot of benefits to assigning them through Canvas. It keeps them all in one place. Kids don't have to share them with you because you shared a template with them like Google Classroom did. But no, you do not have to use these resources through Canvas. I just want to make sure that I make that clear.
Okay. Couple of questions. I'm just going to read them and you can answer them instead of me typing them. If we want to play games from that PDF and they are a Google slideshow, do we need to share them out to get the students through Google? I would assign that as a Google assignment, or if it is just something they're going to view, you could just share the link, but I would set that up as a Google assignment through Canvas. And I think you have somewhere in that slide to show how to assign a Google assignment through Canvas. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. And then somebody had asked, they'd switched grade levels and they're want to have their stuff from Nearpod put into a folder. When you switch grade levels, do you not have access to your same account, Hannah? I would think that that would carry over. And just the people who are taking this PD have access to those icebreakers, unless you share the link to the Canvas class that Hannah's teaching from. They can see it from there. Oh, yes, you can make the question about switching grade levels and having your same Nearpods. Yes, you can make a folder and just title it that grade level or grade level subject, and then you can organize them on your homepage so they're not all just floating around. I have mine listed in topics on folders on my Nearpod page. So you can just make a folder. Like Hannah's showing those folders there.
Okay, Canvas course, homeroom course setup. So I don't want to spend too much time on this section because there is going to be a 10 o'clock session that Crystal Kelly from Progress South is running that shows teachers how to get this all set up for them, and it will be recorded. I also already have a recorded webinar that is in the FC Tech Central. And then I also have this video here on the elementary homework dashboard that's just like a 4 or 5 minute video that I made at like 11 o'clock 2 nights ago. Shows you how to the basics of this. So I'm going to go through it a little bit, and then I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to try out on your actual Canvas dashboard, or in the minute time that I give you, if you haven't had a chance to watch this yet, you could also do that. Now I can't run video through WebEx events. The sound doesn't play that way because of the way that this event is set up, but you could certainly have access to it in your course and do it that way. All right, so Canvas homeroom course setup. So first thing, use the announcements feature to share quick links, reminders, directions, the daily schedule, video, or other timely information with students. So when you are looking, let me go back to homeroom here. When you are looking at the new dashboard, basically the homeroom course, instead of being a regular course, has been turned into a get information to students course. And that is its main purpose. So if I were to click on this homeroom course, you're going to see it doesn't have all of the different sections as a regular course inside, because it's not meant for assigning assignments. It's not meant for creating pages. What it's meant for is to get information to students quickly. Because one of the big things that we heard from teachers, and this is what Canvas heard from teachers all over the world last year when we onboarded a lot of elementary buildings into Canvas, and not just for us, but what they heard loud and clear is teachers are spending way too much time making Canvas elementary friendly. They're spending way too much time sharing links directly to things. They're spending way too much time creating buttons. They're spending way too much time with just all that linking piece and setting up all those Monday through Friday pages and all that kind of stuff. So this is meant to simplify that whole process. With that being said, it can be disabled, and I have in the video at the very end of this video, if you still are not convinced and you really love the linking and you liked making all of those pages and updating them every single day, you certainly are welcome to keep doing that. I'm not going to try to stop you, but I do want to show you how.
I don't know if it's a love as so much as that's what I got used to.
That's true. There is that too. It is what you've used to, but I'm hoping that this will show you that you can get what your students where they need without having to necessarily do all of those steps and spend all of that time. So basically your homeroom course is a way for you to push announcements out to kids, and also have a static page called important information where you can do something that you want to stay in one place all year for the students. So this is just like having one page that you continuously can edit. So it doesn't keep past versions. It's like you went to Canvas and you keep editing the same page over and over again. But the information you put here is information you want students to have all year. So I just have a slideshow that Julia shared with me that I embedded here just to show you can embed a slideshow. You can embed a Bitmoji classroom if you have one with links to different things. You can put your newest newsletter in there every week if there's websites your kids go to all the time, because that is going to show up for students. Homeroom, please don't take forever to load. Here we go. Under this resources tab. So when they click resources, the very top thing that's going to show up on their screen is whatever you put on the important info page. And to edit it, it's really nice. They just put a pencil here, so you don't even have to go back into the class. This will take you back in just by editing. But I just want to help you to understand here that this is just one page that you continuously edit. Okay. Whereas the announcements, you can continue to make new announcements, as many as you would like. And the most current announcement is what shows up on the student screen. So for this one, I made the announcement for the week of August 30th. And then I put in here some different things that you might want to put in an announcement course, right? So you might want to put a link that you want students to send to. Obviously, you can send it to them through GoGuardian and other ways too, but just another option. You can actually give them like a reminder of some kind. You can embed images, you can embed slideshows. You can also create a schedule within your announcement if you would like. The nice thing about this is it shows up on the top of the student screen. It's the very first thing they see when they log into their device, because we've set Canvas as one of the pages that loads first when a student logs into their computer. And now with this new homeroom course, this schedule is what they see first, if that's what you put into your announcement. So whatever your most current announcement is, it's going to show up like that for students. And in fact, I can open up the student side of this so that you can see what I mean. So this is a student that logged into their Chromebook, and this is the page that pops up. Oh, it's probably going to ask me to put in a password. No? Okay, good. And whatever you made as your current announcement, that's going to populate across the top of the screen. So if your current announcement had your different subject areas and had links to where you want the student to go that day, then you could do your linking here and send them directly to that assignment through how you linked in the announcement. So you could do a daily announcement, you could do a weekly announcement. The nice thing about announcements is you can schedule them. So if I go into this homeroom course here, and I see my different sections, including announcements, when I create a new announcement, I get all the same things that I would have with a page. So however you created a page, you can put the same things into an announcement as well. So I can put slideshows, I can put YouTube videos, I can add images, I can create a Canvas video where I do, video announcements to my kids, that sort of thing. And then I can also decide who to post it to and stuff like that. So I can also delay the posting. So I can say, when do I want this announcement to pop up on student screens? So you can actually set up announcements for a day or a week, and you can set them up in advance, and then you tell Canvas when you want that announcement to show up on your student's dashboard. I will say they are continuing to make improvements. They have all the main pieces of this new Canvas for Elementary ready to go. They are continuing to make little tweaks throughout the year, and they are really listening to teachers. So there's a Canvas for Elementary Canvas group that anybody can join, and there are engineers and product designers that monitor that Canvas group, and they have made suggestions based on what people have suggested in that group. They're being very, very responsive to what teachers are asking for. Now, obviously, it takes a little time to build those things, but some of the things that they're doing, I know, is they're changing this homeroom to home. I don't know about you, but this whole M being on the bottom, like, really, really annoys me from a design perspective. Plus, the word homeroom doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot to an elementary kid because we don't call them homerooms. So they're going to just change this to home because students are used to clicking on home. So they're going to change that to home. Another thing that's really helpful in the student, and let me go back to the student perspective, is anything you put in assignment with a due date is going to pop up right here. So this is showing me for today what was assigned in my different classes. So this one, I have this practice assignment, and I can click on it and I can get to that assignment. In this class, in science, I have a quiz, and you'll notice everything's color coded. So each subject area has a different color. If there's something that the student is missing, they not turned it in, that shows up here too. So they can actually go to make up any missing assignments from here. This is similar to the list view that the classic view of Canvas had, but it's nice because it's just a toggle between. So as long as you're putting due dates on assignments, they're going to show up here. And so you don't necessarily have to do linking up here. They also are going to show up here. So you can see there's 2 assignments due in this class today. So if I click on it, it's going to take me to the schedule for just this particular class. So it takes that schedule that's from the main screen, but it narrows it down to just math. So you, inside of each subject area, you also have a schedule for just that subject area. But remember, you have to put due dates on things, or else those assignments, Canvas doesn't know where to put them. They'll still be in your modules, wherever they're listed in their modules, but they can't show up on the schedule unless there's a due date. Students also have things with due dates on their calendar too. So if you want them to look at their calendar, that also puts all of their assignments into that same place on the calendar. So really, there are already built into Canvas 3 different ways with this schedule, with the course schedule inside, and with the calendar, that as long as you're putting due dates on things, it's going to populate on that student schedule. So with that in mind, that may take away the need for you to do as much of the linking here. It doesn't mean you can't, but if you don't feel like that's a necessity for students to have that up there, you can just have them go to the course itself. And you notice that the inside of the course, we tried, our Canvas for Elementary tried to make this also more student friendly. So everything has things across the top, just like it does on the home page. And they can go back and forth that way. They don't have all of the other options that they used to have. There's not tons of things along the left sidebar for them to click on. Because one of the things we noticed too in teachers' classes is their sidebar was all in different order from each other. Some people had tons of things enabled on the sidebar, some people didn't. So they tried to streamline that piece as well. Sarah, are you getting any questions on that you want to ask?
Not that specifically, but I've had this question a couple times.
Okay.
How do you get a page from a class that you had last year?
Okay, so to get to past courses, you're going to go to subjects and all subjects. And then what you'll see here, especially if it came from SIS. So if it came from SIS, once the SIS end date passes, it's going to be down here. I have so many courses, it's ridiculous. In past enrollments. Okay, so that's where those are going to go. And then you can click inside of a course from last year, and you can go ahead and copy things over to your new course. And to get inside of a course, it's this Manage Subject button. So that will let you go back to that traditional sidebar view, and you can get to your modules, you can get to your pages, you can get to your assignments, all that kind of good stuff. So that's how you would go back to last year's courses that came.
Can you show the page, like just click on a page on that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure, sorry. No, that's okay.
Copy too.
I went too fast. All right, so let me go to, I'll just go to a module here. But you could do this with module or assignment or anything else.
Or pages.
Yeah, or pages, thank you. And I would go here, 3 dots, copy to, and then I type in the name of my course I want to copy to, and then click copy. So that's all I got to do.
Okay. Hopefully that answers that question that's come up a couple times.
And if you want more help on that, in the, no, not comments, in the help button, FZ Tech Central, we have resources on copying as well. So we have that information for you in Tech Central.
And then as far as like newsletters and things like that being posted digitally, I know last year they were doing that as announcements. Is that still kind of the expectation and okay?
I have not been given specific directions for all elementary buildings on exact what their requirements are. I would say that's something to talk to the administrator in your building if they have been giving those specific directions, because I have not.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I don't want to give an answer and then be wrong, because I'm not sure of. So Okay, one other thing I wanted to show you in here, and I think, okay, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes here for more practice time to actually practice working on either an announcement or working on adding something to your important info page, just so you can play with it and actually have practice posting it. I do want to say though, there also is another resource I have put in here. Let me go to my modules page actually. So on this course, I also have some sample subject banners because one of the things that they did with the Canvas for Elementary, when you go to your course settings now, if it's an elementary looking course, that you can have a different image that's on your main page, like on your homepage for kids, and you can have a different banner across the top. Because you might have noticed on mine, it really stretched out this image across the top of my screen when kids went inside the class. So you can actually, and it tells you a 5-to-1 ratio. So it's whatever, how long it is, it's 5 across, 1 down is how you're going to look at it. But you can choose a different image to be the image inside of the course. So what I put in there are images that Canvas themselves had made. So I know that they are the right dimensions and so forth. So now I have that image when kids open up my course. So you have a bunch of them there. And if you click on the pictures there, the course card banner images, let me go back to where that is in my modules page. Okay, so here, these are all examples of ones that Canvas made that you can click and download, and then you can upload to that settings into your banner image. Now you don't have to. If you don't, it's just going to leave it the way that it was. It's just going to take whatever picture you put and it's going to stretch it across the top. But now I have a banner that actually looks a little nicer and is the right dimension. So all right, so I'm going to I want to give you about 5 minutes this time, 3 to 5 minutes, because I want you to actually have time to download an image and add it to your course, or have time to practice making an announcement or anything like that. And we'll monitor chat and answer questions as they come up, but take a couple minutes and play around and see if there's any questions that pop up as you are doing that.
And there was a question of, is there still a parent view? Yes, parents
Yes,
still.
there's. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say parents still can join as an observer.
Correct. Yes. And they would see, the different courses and things that way. So the back to school slideshow with all the updates that your elementary technology teacher or Shield member shared with you. At the end of that slideshow, there are directions on parent observers, and you can actually do a whole class at once and get codes and things like that. So there are directions for that if you're interested in having your parents join. I will tell you that's also something they're working on, is making that parent view better than what it is right now. So they are actively working on improving the parent observer in Canvas. I don't know exactly when it will be pushed out and finalized, but I do know they're working on it.
Question, Canvas inbox question. Is there a way to archive multiple messages in one step?
Ooh, that is a question I have not asked.
I am
That's
not,
a really good question.
Not savvy with the inbox.
Yeah, well, yeah, and if you used it last year a lot, I can see where you really might want to do that. I don't know the answer to that question yet, but what I will do is I will find out and I will add that answer.
Yeah.
So into the discussion part at the very end of the course.
I will add that question.
Okay, you're gonna add that question for me?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, and we'll talk about how that discussion at the end of the course is going to work a little bit more when we get there. But yes, I will add that question on and I will get an answer for you. And I'm going to give you about 2 more minutes. So 9:15, we'll move on to the next topic.
And a question, will our classes publish once school starts? Once you publish them, you have to still publish them, but they won't go live until our start date of class. So students won't see them on their dashboard. And if you're wanting to test out and see what students see on their computer or anything, you won't see it there either. So don't panic if you're not seeing it. You can still test it in student.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you log in student, they're
Mhm.
not going to see anything.
So don't
Yeah.
panic, it'll be there.
But you can always use student view to practice inside of the class too.
Right.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sarah, for clarifying that. Yeah, so they should open automatically on the 23rd as long as you publish it. You still have to publish the course or else they can't see it even once that start date passes.
Okay.
All right, anything else, Sarah, before we move on?
I think you're good to go.
Okay. All right, so one of the other things that having technology in your students' hands can help with is making some of your classroom procedures and things more efficient. So on this page, and these are things that a fifth grade teacher shared with me, thank you, Julia, to be able to keep track of students in a couple of different ways. So she has a digital hall pass, and she has a late work tracking Google form. So these are both Google forms that you can use, and this will ask you to make a copy of it so that you can use your own version. But she has student name, so I won't leave that up on the screen for too long. But she basically has student name and then where are you going? So they check their name, they say where they're going, they submit the form, and then she has a spreadsheet because when you do a Google form, it populates all the answers in a spreadsheet of her kids and when they left and why they left, so that, you know, when it gets to conferences or if we seem like there's starting to be a pattern of something happening, she has actual data to go back to that she can show students and administrators and people like that to show what is happening in her classroom. Same thing for late work tracking. It's a similar idea so that she can keep track of students that are turning in things late. You can get these to students a couple of different ways. Now she has a iPad in her classroom. That's an older iPad that has QR code that students can scan and fill out the form that way on the iPad. I realize not everybody has that. You could, however, post these in Canvas. If you wanted to do that, you could have, if you have an extra Chromebook in your class, like if you're a third or fourth grade teacher and you have more devices than you have students, you could have a Chromebook that you leave open that has these hall passes pulled up inside of it. You could also have students add their own bookmark to the bookmarks bar with these different passes inside of it so that they open it up and fill it out. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You don't have to use the QR code. The QR code just allows students to scan and then so she had these posted in her classroom. So they would hold up the iPad, it would scan the QR code opens up the Google form and they fill it out. But you could just have a direct link to the form itself or have the form already pulled up. So that's completely up to you how you want to manage it. And these are just images that I put. So that would be one thing that you could do to help with gathering data and keeping your procedures more efficient. Another thing, and we have this specifically for fifth grade teachers, but this could be modified for third and fourth as well, to keep track of students with their own devices and whether or not they're having to get loaners really often, or if they're coming with their devices not charged really often or things like that. So on this one, and this is editable once you make the copy, so you can make this look different if you think this doesn't fit how you would do it. But for each one, there's a drop-down box, and they would select the reason why they need a loaner device. So they need a loaner device because they forgot their Chromebook at home. Did they forget to charge it, or is it damaged? And then you can put a date in here. This is just another way for you to take that data for your students. Now you could also make this into a Google form as well, where students put in, you know, why they did it. So you could do it the same way that these work too. So those are up to you, but just think about how the technology can make your life easier and how it can help keep track of different things in the classroom that can be very hard to keep track of from time to time. So those are some suggestions on that. Then Okay, so our 5th grade teachers that did the one-to-one pilot last year, they mostly use the take-home devices, especially because kids were still getting used to them and things like that. They didn't send home a lot of like actual homework assignments to complete on the Chromebook that were like due for points and things like that. Not saying that that's something you can't do, but what they did do is they'd send home some choice boards for students to get to choose some extra activities that they might use their device for. So this folder takes you to a Google Drive shared folder that they shared the resources that they had used. So, and this is just one example that I embedded from that shared resources folder. So that was just a suggestion specific to 5th grade teachers as well for some ideas on the homework side of things. So you don't feel like you have to send home, specific homework assignments, but you still could send them some choices either way. All right, so I'm going to skip down here because these were those banner images that we had talked about. Let's talk about Chromebook skills and keeping our Chromebooks working smoothly. All right, so one of the first things that you need to do with your students is get them into the Chromebook, right? That's kind of important, day one or day two, depending on how brave you are. So one of the things that we did is made some directions for you with the new ClassLink screen. It's very similar to Clever. The biggest change that you're going to find, so this is if K2 for those cards, obviously that doesn't apply to you, but you still could use it if you have, a sped kid that needs to use one of those cards. So this for you guys, grades 3, 4, and this can also apply for 5th grade too. You, instead of having kids click sign in with a different account, now everybody can use that blue next button, which we always told them don't click next, but now everybody can use the next button because the way ClassLink works is they can just put in their username and password all on one screen. So with the way Google worked is you'd have to put the username in, click next, then you have to put the password in, click next again. With ClassLink, the username and password screen are both on the same screen. And with their username, it's just last name, first name, birthday, no @student or anything like that. And it's their normal lunchpin password. Then they click sign in. The other nice thing about this is it signs them into their Chromebook and ClassLink at the same time. So that their ClassLink page will already be on the dashboard. They won't have to do the sign in with Google piece like we used to have to do with Clever. Once they opened the Clever tab, then they have to click on sign in with Google. Then it would open the page. So this signs them into both programs at the same time. So that just saves an extra step for you. And for 5th grade, there are some 5th grade that want to put the avatar view on their screen where it saves their username and they just put in their password each time because they're the only person that will ever use that device throughout the year. That is a setting that has to be set in Google Admin by your tech teacher. So make sure that you've thought about that. The one piece with this, if you do this, it's not signing the kids into ClassLink. So there is this extra step of syncing your ClassLink and Google accounts that students would have to do the first time they went to ClassLink if they are if you are wanting to set your Chromebooks up this way. So just talk with your tech teacher about it and you guys can decide what works best for your building, because if you don't want to go that route, everybody can use this route and sign in like we normally do. Okay. And I also, this is a suggestion from middle school as well, is to give students, print out for students something they can keep in their binder or folder that they keep at their desk at all times. That is a shortcut quick reference. So things like copying and pasting, refreshing the screen, like what do those things look like on an iPad, or not iPad, on a Chromebook, I mean. And these aren't necessarily, you may want to make copy and change what's on this list, but just getting students practice using those quick and easy ways with the Chromebooks, I think will help you in the long run. And they certainly practice things like copy and paste in tech class, but they only are in tech class 40 minutes a week. So for you to continue practicing those in your classroom will make it much faster and easier for those kids. Also, if you have some fast finishers, or if you have, you want them to be doing something when they first come in at the beginning of the day and people are kind of coming in at different times and things like that, or at the end of the day when they're feeling a little squirrely. The tech teachers also created a slideshow for you of how those students can continue to practice typing in your class if there is any extra time. Haha, I know. But we did make some directions that you could post. Here's the link to them. If you wanted students to be able to get some extra typing practice in class. And with just some reminders of them that you could leave this up on the screen, leave this up on the screen for them of what the expectation is when they are typing. Obviously, we know that you can't be spending all of your time walking around and checking their home row position. Nobody would expect that, but just an opportunity in case you want to use that. And lastly, one of the things you can also teach students to do if there's particular documents or websites you're using on a regular basis that you want just right here on the bookmarks bar, then you can teach students how to bookmark a site with the star and save that to their bookmarks bar as well, just kind of like I have all of my little icons here across the top. This is just quick, like 30-second directions on how to do that piece. On the maintaining side of things, common issues with Chromebooks. So one of the things that might happen with the Chromebook as it goes throughout the year is it may start slowing down, or maybe sometimes we've seen where like all of a sudden the headphone jack doesn't work or things like that. So there are a couple of things that you can do with students to help fix the issue. Obviously, you can also put in a work order and you can get help with that as well. But if you know how to do this, then it might save time of getting student loaner devices and all that kind of stuff. So this is the link to this slideshow, but basically it shows you how to do what's called a power wash, which I know is a really strange word that they use, but it's basically resetting the device. It's like wiping things out and starting over again. Now, anything that the student has in their drive, obviously it's not going to get rid of anything like that because that's saved to the cloud, saved to Google Drive. It's not saved to the device. If they did have anything that they actually saved to their Chromebook itself, it would wipe that out. But in general, kids aren't saving much content to their actual Chromebook. So, but I do want to mention that. Google Chrome should update on its own, but every once in a while you get a Chromebook that gets stuck. And you see the updates happen on everybody else's Chromebooks, and this one Chromebook is not seeming like it's updating. You can also force an update to Google Chrome on the device itself, and that's Erin Fletcher right there. Thank you for sharing that, Erin. Another thing that might be helpful for you and your students, I love this website. What they basically did is very quick, student-friendly tutorials on common issues with Chromebooks or common skills for Chromebooks. So there are a bunch of videos on here. So for example, you have a student that turns on that big old mouse pointer and like, I don't know what I did. I didn't mean to do that, even though sometimes that's true and sometimes that's not. But it has a link to a YouTube video that shows you how to fix that. So there are a number of nice, easy, quick tutorials. I embedded one of them before at the bottom, but there's a lot more of them that are available. All right, Sarah, any questions with the Chromebook piece?
Nope, I think we're okay right now.
Okay, well, let's get into some different subject areas and some suggestions for what out of that blueprint would make the most sense to use in my face-to-face classroom on a daily basis. So one of the things that we have heard loud and clear, a lot of the virtual teachers told us this. We also heard this from Stephanie Sinker with ELA, is using Nearpods, and especially for word study. So one of the virtual teachers says, I loved and will continue to implement all things Canvas. I also enjoy creating Kahoots about the content we're learning. I will also utilize the Nearpods with my word study lessons. So the Nearpods are built into the blueprint on the date at which it falls into your curriculum. So if it's Unit A, Mod A, Day 3, or whatever, it will be built into your blueprint that's already pushed into your course. But to give you a more global view of it, Stephanie also took on her math site, she has these as well, or not math site, her ELA site, she has these as well. But what she did is she went to every lesson in word study and she linked the Nearpod or slideshow that goes along with it too, so that you can also get to things from here as well. So these are links, and when you click on them, it's going to ask you to save it to your library. Now, so you can use it either way. You can get to them this way and save them, or you can get to them within the blueprint itself, and then you can turn it into a Nearpod assignment, and then it gets pushed through Canvas that way. It's really up to you what you prefer. If you just assign it through Nearpod itself and you don't assign it as an assignment in Canvas though, remember students are going to need that code and it's not going to be in SpeedGrader. One of the biggest and I think coolest updates that Nearpod has ever done is they now have a way to switch between a live and a student paced lesson during the lesson. So now if you have a part of your lesson that you want to do collaboratively all together and you want to keep students on the same slide, you want to gather that feedback, you want them to participate and answer questions and things like that, which is really the power of Nearpod, right? That whole collaborative and instant feedback piece is what Nearpod's really all about versus waiting till they've completed something and going and looking back at the results later. I like that fact that Nearpod allows you to have a lot of in-class feedback that's happening in the middle of the lesson. But you may have times where you're like, well, I want to do these 3 slides all together, but then I want to give them some time to work through these next 3 Nearpod slides. So there will be a toggle on the bottom of a slideshow for you to turn that student pace on or off. You can also, if you are really a good planner, and I don't know if I would ever be this well planned out, but you can also set when you're, before you even start the lesson and decide, okay, I want slides 14 through 17 to be student paced, so I'm going to set that on my Nearpod before we even go. One of the other nice things I like about this is, let's say that you have 22 students, maybe that's low for some of your classes probably, but we're just going to pretend you have 22 students, but only 20 of them are there that day. This is a way for you to do live with the 20 students you have in your class right then. And then when you're finished with that, turn it to student pace, and then your students who are absent can then go and do it on their own if they missed the live lesson. I know our virtual teachers would have loved to have this available to them last year, but I think that this is a really powerful way to use the collaborative and live features of Nearpod, but not lose the piece where students can do work on their own as well. All right. Any questions on that, Sarah?
No, I think we're doing okay.
Okay. So I had some practice time. I don't think we're going to actually have time to do that though. So
yeah, time went much faster, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. There's just so much
Always does.
here. I could do this all morning. Okay, you guys would get tired of me. So I do have directions in here if you want to assign something through Nearpod. I also have my Nearpod slideshow in here that you can use as well for just more basic information about Nearpod. So I'll just keep moving on that. The next piece, Google assignment. So if you have a Google Doc, a Google slideshow, even a Google Sheet, if you really go crazy with that, this does not apply to Google Forms. I'm just going to say that off the top real quick here. But any Google assignment like a doc sheet or slideshow, it allows you to share out a template of that slideshow or doc or sheet to all of your students at the same time. It gives them each their own copy with their name in the title, and it allows you to view their student work in progress if you go through your Google Drive. There'll be a folder in your Google Drive where you can see how far students have gotten in whatever you shared with them. So this is the external tool that I would suggest using if you want to share something with students that's a doc or slideshow things and you want them all to get the same copy and you want to be able to view it as they are working through it and not be just clicking on the share button inside of it and then them sharing it to you and then you get 100 emails. That is not what we would suggest doing because that is way harder for you all to keep track of. So this, once again, is that same video that I put in here before on how to do a Google assignment, and I will do a quick example because it sounded like we had enough people that wanted to see that. These are also student directions, so this is a slideshow you could give to students so that they can complete a Google assignment in your class and know what to do. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this one. And we're going to go to the points here. Now you could add directions here. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep this simple. I'm going to make this worth 5 points. You don't have to make it worth points, but I'm going to do that. Actually, no, for Google assignments, you do have to make it worth at least 1 point, right, Sarah, in order to be able to make that connection. I think it has to have
I believe so.
has to have a point value. It's a quirky thing with Google itself. It's not Canvas's fault. You can blame Google for that one. So it does have to be at least worth 1 point, which is basically like completion, right? So that's fine. The submission type is an external tool. And then you need to find that external tool, which is Google Assignments. And then it's going to, the first time you ever use it, it's going to ask you to link your course, which, oh goodness, hopefully this doesn't take too long with me sharing my screen. It doesn't take that long on the end, but with sharing my screen and doing it at the same time, we shall see. If it takes more than a minute, okay, good. Oh, all right. So on this screen, this is where you're attaching whatever files you want students to have a copy of. So I'm going to click attach here, and it's going to bring up all the files in my Google Drive. It's going to start with recent, but you can search for anything in your drive that you would like. I'm just going to go ahead and pick something that just came up here. I'm just going to do this board student resources. Obviously, I wouldn't really do that, but that's okay. And then I have that here. Now you can attach multiple things. And Sarah and I have done projects before with tech class where they had a document where they were keeping track of research, and then they had a slideshow where they were putting what they learned in their research into a slideshow. So we attached both the doc and the slides to the same assignment, and students were getting a copy of both of them. So you can do that if there's a need for that. I do need to make sure that my point value here matches what I put in Canvas. That's how Google and Canvas make the connection so that you can get the grade in SpeedGrader that you gave in the Google assignment. I'm going to give it a due date here. Just make it due today. That's fine. All right. And then I'm going to say create. You can add a rubric if you want, as long as it's in the right format. All right. And then this is highlighted. This shows me this is the one I chose and it's good to go. So I'm going to click select, and you see Google filled in that piece for me. Do not mess with this link. You don't want to mess with this link. And then due date, I made that due today. So I'm going to make sure that matches, and I'm going to press save. So now once it loads, I'm going to have my assignment and any directions up at the top, just like I could put with any other assignment. And at the bottom, I'm going to have all of my submissions. Now, this screen here only shows you what students have actually submitted, but in my Google Drive, which is a hot mess, so please excuse me when you take a look at it, it's going to make a folder for you called assignments. And in that folder, it's going to have every class that you have connected through Canvas. And in that, it's going to have any assignment, oh goodness, I can't talk, Sarah. Any student that starts an assignment, it's going to populate here, even if they're not finished, even if they haven't submitted it. So you can view the student work in progress through Drive. You can also see what they submitted in Canvas. And you can have kids submit multiple times. So if you say, everyone submit however far you got today, just so I can see it here, and then they can resubmit and continue to resubmit that way. So it kind of depends on which way you'd rather do it. But this way you can get those assignments sent out and returned to you through Canvas itself, not having to worry about the share button and emailing and all that kind of stuff. All right. Don't want to spend too much time because I know some of you already know how to do Google assignments, but just want to make sure you saw that once. Another thing in ELA from our former virtual teacher, she said, having our selection tests on Canvas really made giving feedback much easier. Students got immediate feedback and grading was completed for you for the most part. We all like that. Selection tests can also be altered for students this way to meet the needs of a diverse group. So I went ahead and put in an example of a, came from, I don't remember which grade, it was third, fourth, or fifth. So it's one of those three, from the blueprint. So you see that the assignment is already here. The points are set up. The questions are set up. You can preview it as a teacher and you can publish it. You can also edit it if you would have a need. So they're already built into Canvas for you, and you'll find them at whatever module and day that they are supposed to be located. Another tool, Flipgrid, a virtual teacher said students were motivated to share their writing through Flipgrid. Instead of having to get up in front of the classroom and share what they wrote, they were much more willing to hold up, or I guess it wouldn't be from the classroom, would have been on a WebEx last year, but same idea. They were willing to hold up their piece of writing and read it to the screen on Flipgrid. Students still then could see each other's if you made it to where it was visible to the class. So it's just a way to, and I know sometimes we feel like there's never time to celebrate the writing that students do. They put in all this work to create the writing, and then there's never time to actually have kids share their writing. So this is a way that they could share that writing and everybody could be making their video at the same time. And then you could give kids time on the Flipgrid to go through and watch other kids, or you could, you know, display it at the front of the classroom too, whatever works for your kids and how comfortable they are with sharing. I put, once again, the directions on Flipgrid in Canvas here. You don't have to use Flipgrid inside of Canvas. You can use it separately as well. A big piece for you guys is that for math this year, you're being asked for students to upload pictures of your evidence grids. So I went to the math site. So this is here on the math site where it talks about the evidence grids, and it gives you examples of those evidence grids that teachers can use, or students can use. So when I talked with Heather, she said, you know, everybody's chapter 1 assessment is a little slightly different date. So I went to the math website and I tried to calculate based on the number of days when you start math to when you would be taking that first assignment. I'm crossing my fingers that I calculated correctly. Haven't taught math in a couple years, so if I made a mistake, you can put that in the discussion at the end and let me know and I will fix it. But based on my calculations, this would be the first date of the chapter tests when students would need to submit that image. This here shows you how to make a file upload submission so that students have access to the webcam inside of Canvas. And that was something that was added in the screen. Students don't have to go to a Google Doc or anything else to upload a picture now. There is a picture tool that is embedded inside of file upload submissions in Canvas itself. So they can take a picture of their work without ever leaving Canvas, which is great. I also made directions for students on how to upload a picture, and I use an evidence grid here. And then I also have a video that shows kids the same thing. There are other, oops, let me start that. There are other assignment types in here too. So there's text assignments, there's Google assignment, there's different kinds of assignments in here as well, just so you know, but it starts with that picture assignment. So if I was going to assign that, I was going to have you guys practice, but of course, I'm running out of time here. Excuse me. When I go to the assignment, this is what is built into Canvas right now. So you're going to want to change these directions to make it work for in-person kids, because this was left from our virtual kids. And then the assignment type is online and file upload. So if you set the assignment type that way, and I would put a due date on it if I was actually doing this with students. But if you set the assignment that way, then when students go to complete the assignment, they're going to have that webcam option to be able to take a picture of their work right inside Canvas itself and submit that work to you where you can see it in SpeedGrader. Another thing that's really great with Nearpod, Nearpod has a ton of virtual field trips that are available that really help students to be able to see places, a lot of 360 views, and they can drag around on the screen so they can look at monuments, they can look at different countries, they can look at different landforms. So they have a whole library of already created virtual field trips, which I think is awesome. And you can add them to your library and you can edit them as you would like. So if there's only 1 or 2 slides that you want to use, that's fine. You can make that happen. I also put in an example from a 3rd grade lesson of a Nearpod that was in the 3rd grade blueprint already. I did add my own extra little slide because there's now drag and drop activities in Nearpod as well, where you can set a background and then you can decide what labels that it creates, and students can actually drag the labels onto whatever image you made as the background. So this is not a whole lot of activities that Nearpod has because this feature just came out a couple weeks ago, but they are building an activity library of drag and drop activities. So I wanted to share that with you. All right, I'm quickly, I need to stop here in like 5 minutes or less. So real quick here. Next thing, we aren't going to have time to share our lessons, but you certainly could go back and do that. Since you're in the course, if you find a really awesome one that you want other teachers to see, you can put that in the discussion there because this discussion continues to stay live. Another great thing is if you're doing assignments where students are completing something over multiple days and they tend to lose their paper, if you send it to them with the Google assignment, then they can keep going back to that same assignment in their drive to add more data, and they don't ever lose the piece of paper, which is nice. Now, obviously, that's going to work better with some activities than others. If it's a science thing where we're doing a lot of sketching, obviously that won't work. But if they're just recording some simple data, then that could be a good option. There's also a bunch of science simulations here that you can send students to simulate all different kinds of things with weather and atoms and all kinds of stuff on there. This is an example of one of the things in the science blueprint that you could have assigned to students with the Google assignment where they're recording data over several days, and then you can keep track of that data. Okay. Questions? All right, so Sarah added the question there. Awesome. So I have 2 discussions at the end, and these are discussions that are related to 3rd through 5th implementation. So I want to make sure that we're keeping the discussion questions on what they're supposed to be. So this here is questions you have specifically about one-to-one implementation. Now, if you're having trouble with something else in Canvas, put in a work order, please, because that's not the place for this. This is things, you know, well, how are you going to handle this in the classroom? Or do you have any documents or suggestions for me teaching students how to do this? So that would be the kind of things that you could ask questions, and you can also answer other people's questions if there's something that you already have established procedures for. Resource you can share if there's anything that you are planning on using with students throughout the year and you're like, ooh, I think other people would really like to have that. You can put a link to that resource there as well. So this is going to be ongoing because you're in the class as a student, so you have access to this class on your Canvas dashboard at any time. And that way we can continue to help and support each other throughout the year in this implementation process. I really, really appreciate you joining me this morning. I hope you found something that you can use in your classroom this year. It's okay to not use everything, but just try something and just move yourself one step farther along. And I think you and your students will really benefit for that. If you have any more like Canvas related questions or things, put in a work order and we will get to that as well.